Hello, everyone. My name is Fariba Parsa. I am the founder and president of Women's E-Learning e-Leadership. We empower Iranian and Afghan women in leadership skills through online courses in leadership, mentorship, and global networking. Today, we are so honored to interview DeeDee Fisher. I know DeeDee from Vital Voices, and DeeDee is one of the first people who sent a review for my book, Fighting for Change in Iran, the Women Life Freedom Philosophy Against Political Islam. And we had a conversation, and I'm so grateful that DeeDee is accepted to be an advisor for the Women's E-Learning in Leadership. So I became more interested to get to know her for network who are with well organization. And one of the things also I interview women leaders, entrepreneur, and academic to share their experiences, their knowledge with women in Iran and in Afghanistan. So I'm so grateful and honored to have you to this today's interview.
Thank
Um,
you. Glad to be here.
I would like to you just share your story, life story, and where you born and how you get where you are.
Okay. My name's DeeDee Fisher. I was born in the United States in the state of Idaho in a small rural community of about 200 people. I graduated high school with 30 people, so very, very small. Um, it was very run by one very Orthodox religion, which was Mormon. The Mormon temple is in Utah, about 4 hours away. And though the Mormon religion has great family values, it's very oppressive for women, at least for a woman like me who's type A. So, so I had to learn how to communicate in an environment that wasn't what my soul desired. So I always say, born into a place where you don't fit.
Oh, yeah.
And and so through that process, many entrepreneurial adventures where I've landed now is doing communication based on my lifetime experience of how do I create a tool to help women do what I did so young, to not to be angry, but to stand up and speak my voice, even in the state of where it's maybe not going to be heard.
Yeah, what you say. I think what we can similar to women in Iran and in Afghanistan is the same. I was born in Iran, and then my soul didn't fit that very religious, strict society. I think there are millions of women of Afghanistan are the same. They're highly educated, but they can't live in on the Taliban regime. So can you share how you come out of this? How would it demands so much courage, and your parents, your families, how they react to who the way you were and they say, can you share?
Yes. So they when I was 18, they wanted me to marry this man who gonna take over his business, my dad's business, and I couldn't figure out a way to not do that. So I did that, and then quickly had it annulled about 6 months in. And when I told my father what I wanted to do, was like, I want to continue my education. I'm going to school. He said, well, I already paid for a wedding. I'm not helping. And I said, fine, I'll do it on my own. And I packed up and I left. So I left the only environment I'd ever known. I moved 2 hours away. I went to college. I was very strategic. Before I got the annulment, I applied for student loans and grants because I was then off my parents' social security, their taxes, so that I could get more money. So I got grants to go to school. So, but I had to work, pay my way through. I was the first person in my family ever to graduate from college or actually leave Idaho. So my whole family is still in Idaho. I now live in Bethesda, Maryland, just outside the District of Columbia, right here in Washington, D.C., what we all like to call DMV, which is District Maryland, Virginia. It's very lovely. But yeah, it was not easy, and it was a struggle. And they now understand that it just wasn't the place for me, but it took many years.
So what would your parents reacted when you left? Did they continue to seeing you? How was the
Yeah.
relationship with your
So
parents?
I the so they yeah so I would go home, or they would come see me 2 hours away. They finally decided that I did know what I was doing and I was doing well. So financially, they started helping me. So that was lovely and very kind of them. Um, my father just realized that, he had raised me very strong. So, because I had worked for him my whole life and in a man's environment, which is where I learned to, speak my truth and stand up for myself. And I think he just realized he had raised me that way. He had helped create who I am, right? By giving me all these amazing opportunities as a young person. Very young, I went to work for him. So after the upset of me not doing what they thought I should, then they finally came around.
Wow. So you left your home when you were only 18?
Yes.
Wow. What about your siblings? Did they follow you? What was happened with them?
No, I have one sibling and he's still in Idaho. He did not leave. He spends year round with my parents. They do a lot together and they stay there. I visit them in the summer, so I see them in the summertime.
Yeah, okay. So when you leave Mormon, they don't exclude you from the family and then friends.
No, they don't do that. No. But I mean, I did have friends who didn't understand what I was doing and stopped talking to me. And it took a couple years for them to have their own life experiences, for them to come around and say, oh, now I understand.
Yeah, okay. I know some of the other religious, like a Jehovah's Witness, if you leave this community, they exclude you, and then I know some one person who disconnected from her parents and siblings. It's very hard. If they were born in a community that they don't feel they belong to that community, that's very hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's much more about how rural the place was that I was born and raised than the religion, because I've met other Mormons like in other areas like Arizona where I lived, or here in Bethesda, Maryland, who are lovely and not that way. So it may have been both things combined,
Yeah.
right? So not just the religion itself, but the religion and the small community where, 200 people, everybody's supposed to act the same way, do the same thing. And
Yeah.
it just happened to be that religion. So
So when you go to college, what did you study? Which subject?
I started out as a pre-dent, so pre-dental.
Yeah.
And then I realized that I did not get enough math or chemistry in the small town that I came from. So I changed to psychology. And then my senior year, my advisor, Dr. Joe, said, I think you should go to communications. And I said, why? And he said, because you can't be a therapist and some woman's going to come to you and say, my husband's hitting me. And you're going to say, okay, leave. And he's like, you can't do that. You have to help her find her own voice. And he said, you're much better in communications because you can just say it. You can consult, you can direct. And so I changed my major my senior year and graduated with a BA in communications.
Wow, wonderful. So what did you do after you get a job, or when?
Uh, I moved to Arizona. I moved to Arizona and I went to work for a coaching company. And we trained all the large corporations in the Phoenix Valley. So I lived in Phoenix and I worked with McDonnell Douglas, Intel, Motorola, a lot of, tech companies that were just starting making chips like Intel. Yeah. So we helped their C-suite build teams from the top down.
Wow, wonderful. Um, so what is the most you achieved during working with the private companies? When you,
What's the most?
yeah, achievement or experiences.
Um, I think that what I liked most about it was seeing different environments because I quickly learned. So Phoenix is a pretty big melting pot. And so now I get to experience people that were very much different than the people in Idaho, right?
Yeah.
So people come and like, I was like, oh, look at all these different cultures and the experience and people who come to work for Motorola from around the world or Intel or Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, right? That I got to experience other cultures, which opened my eyes up to a whole new world that every place wasn't like where I came from.
Yeah, I can see there's much diversity in the.
Yeah, so much diversity.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So when I would love to hear about your company. I know you started your company. Can you share about what you do, about more about your company, and then when you started, what are your services, your client?
Sure, sure. So in 2019, I started Discover Response when I feel that if we can discover what we're responding to, first and foremost in communication, then we can change. We can change us and other people, but just that first step. And then I consult with executives, C-suites. I work with schools. I work with kids. Um, yeah, I just got off the phone with a nonprofit right before we got on that wants me to come and do some sessions with their summer groups. So teaching children how to communicate, and I use a tool called CPL, which is compassion, process, and learning, removing assumptions, knowing, and trying in our communication.
Yeah, I love this compassion process and learning. Can you give us more some
About it?
yeah, about it? What do you mean about what when you say compassion? Because compassion is can be a little abstract for many people, and we have all different we have different understanding what compassion is and learning. Can you
Sure.
give
Yeah. So for compassion, I really like the quote by Gandhi. Gandhi says, "We sit in a circle and suppose, but the truth sits in the middle and knows." Well, if we step into the middle of the circle before we start communicating and look at the person that we're communicating with and understand first and foremost that all of their experiences in life are different than our experiences in life, which means they're going to filter whatever interaction we're about to have differently than I would. So accepting that from the very first moment. And then when things may be difficult or you may not be on the same page, you have to continue to be in compassion for both of you. I'm me, you're you, but we're different, and let's talk about it. And then after the compassion piece, if you stay in that process, you keep moving, right? You keep moving down the road of your communication, being in compassion, asking questions, developing a relationship. That's the process. And then the last part, the learning, it's what you're learning in the process while you're being in compassion that creates the relationship and a relatedness where you can do things together, even though you're very different.
yeah, I want to go back to compassion. Is it some related to empathy to understand the person? We try to understand first and then be understood.
Yes, yes, yes. It's very much the same. I think compassion and empathy can be interchangeable at different points. But for me, compassion works.
It's more in deeper. Maybe compassion is we take action.
Maybe more, yeah, it's more active, I think.
Yeah, and then I think I heard also one of the quote that we have to take ourselves out of the way. It's some
See,
the ego and the I and me and my ideas. It's so much in front of us that
yes.
prevents us to understand the other person. So how do you do it when you meet a person who are different? So what can you give me an example how with your client how it's an example how you can make the change?
Yeah, so I implore the tools from having a degree in communications first and foremost. So I use who, what, when, where, why, how, and I start there. I start asking questions. Oh, why do you feel that way? And how did that happen? And who did you become? Or when did that happen? And by asking questions instead of sharing my opinion, like my point of view, then I delve into who the other person is. And in response, I can also answer the same question for myself. Oh, I see how that is for you. And I see why you're that way. Let me share like what happened for me. This is how come I believe this, and this is why I am this way. And so the other person doesn't always have to engage in the process. You can run both sides of the conversation by using the tool.
Okay, so it demands the other person is open to answer the
Yes,
yes.
of course. Yes, yes, of course. The other person has to be. in conversation with you, but I suppose you're probably not really attempting to be in conversation often with people who don't want to talk to you.
Yeah. So how do you make this environment of trust? Because sometimes when we talk with other people, they maybe don't trust, they don't want to share, and it's so difficult to open a conversation.
When I so what I do when I'm working with a client who like a lot of executives, they're so busy just doing their thing, they don't really get down to like a personal conversation, and they forget that who they are as a person is who they are as a leader, right?
Yeah.
So what I do is share stories about myself, or I share stories about other people, right? So I take it out of me or them and I try to move it to like, oh, I have this great example. Or you could use something in society or in the news. Oh, did you read this? This is a very good example of what we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, that's my also sometimes I've experienced they feel where they want to defend themselves. They think they want to criticize them or they want have some judging them. That's um come out of judging and put them in a box and then they want to defend. No, I'm not as you think, and the conversation can be not very pleasant. That the goal is to make it, yeah, trusting and pleasant for the other person. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes when I deal with people who have a really rigid viewpoint, I'll bring in humor. You
How?
know, like I'll turn it around and find something funny or obscure about the very rigid belief system, right? You know? And so then you can get somebody laughing, right?
That's perfect. That's if we can laugh together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like if you have, somebody, I once had an executive who he was telling me about his private thoughts, right? And like how his self-talk. And so I said to him, I go, well, I don't understand why you listen because who on your team, what employee would you let talk to you the same way? Because it was all very negative, right?
Uh,
And that's funny. He said, oh, well, I wouldn't let anybody talk to me like that. And I said, but you let yourself talk to you like that.
mm,
And not only that, you actually listen.
yes.
It's a very funny story, right? Because then he's like, oh, right, I do that. I shouldn't do that.
And the and our organization, the Well organization, we want to support women, empower women to find their voice, to really believe in themselves, to have more confidence. Uh, because the society both in Iran and Afghanistan is very patriarchal society, and always men decide, the men have the power, and for women it's so challenging, it's so um, demanding so much from them.
Right.
That is I think that is my idea. That is, for example, even stand against arranged marriage. Parents, especially for father, decide who and when she should marry, and is sometimes father can maybe kill her. It's so difficult to stand against and then say, no, I want to continue my study. I want to get a job. I'm not ready to marry right now. So that's so what is I'm not sure if you have experiences with women. And that's we want to also your support for learning some kind of communication. A person who is has so much power and
Yeah. Yeah.
power
I,
and
yeah, I think you have to learn to negotiate. Like, right? It's a negotiation. And in a negotiation, nobody walks away with everything they want. So maybe in those situations, if we could just move the needle enough for women in Afghanistan and Iran, right? Like, okay, I really like the person you've picked for me to marry, but can I wait 6 months? That would be really great for me, right? Like maybe it's that you don't go for the whole thing, right? Like you give it a specific timeline, right? Like The who, what, when, where, why. Okay, I like the man, I'll marry him, but I want to do it here. Would that work for you? That would be really very, very kind of you to let me do that, right? Like you kind of have to make it the other person's idea, right? And I think the most important thing that I learned in that environment when I was growing up is not to argue the point. So, I mean, you can take our current president in the United States. He says a lot of stuff, which, I believe this, I believe this is the greatest thing ever. Well, we don't have to talk about that. Like, we don't have to address what that person's saying. We can just sidestep it, excuse me, and continue on what we want to say. You can acknowledge it and say, oh, yeah, that's a great thought. But what about this? Could we possibly do this? And every time they say something that's controlling, oh, I can see that point. I can see how that would work. But would this also work also? If you try to fight it, then nothing gets anywhere, right? Because then it's just two people stating their points of view. But if you acknowledge it, even if you don't agree with it, you can acknowledge something. Acknowledgement does not equal agreement,
True.
correct? Like, yeah, you can acknowledge somebody, but it doesn't mean you're agreeing with them.
Yeah. So that is the skill of negotiation.
Yeah,
Negotiation is a skill that we can learn, but I think it's difficult when you say negotiation, you have to give something and take something. In the cases when a woman or a young girl doesn't want to marry, or not
right.
that just say, I don't like that person. I don't want for the next 5 years. I don't want to marry that, or something. It can be also pro- uh, difficulties or conflict between husband and wife. And this negotiation is a good thing to learn as a skill. We need to think about this to teach or women in our network in negotiation because it begins with parents, children, family, and then all the way up to the country. So it can be peace negotiation and or a
Yeah,
difficult.
exactly. Well, I mean, but the women you're teaching are living against, obviously, after reading your book, I understand it very well. They're living against like historical norms.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's going to take as much time to change it, right? It's not going to change overnight, not unless the Taliban just decides they're changing it and like we're going to live different, right? Like because there's a regime of control, you have to start at the smallest level and change just for you. What could I possibly win that would be easy to win? Because I can't get everything, but maybe I can get something.
Yeah. Okay. You mean a small step. So
Yeah, small step for each individual woman, right? Like, and it will be different for each individual woman.
yeah.
And maybe even the woman who doesn't like the man that she's supposed to marry, maybe if she can just get it put off for 6 months. And then after it's put off for 6 months, because she's finishing school or doing her job, then there's another negotiation after that.
Okay. Yeah. So that's also demands they believe in themselves and learn, communicate, and negotiate with
Yeah.
people in power.
Yes. People I mean, it's a different thing than anyone in the United States has ever dealt with, right? I mean, yes, I could say I'm leaving and I could pack up my things and I could leave the environment I was in. I didn't get disowned. There was no threat of death, right? Like I mean, it's very much, this conversation is a very much life and death situation,
Mm.
right? And I understand that from your book. I'm very grateful for your book. Um, so thinking that one conversation is going to change historical norms, it's not, right? But we can slowly show it's okay to give women more power in their lives. Everything turns out fine. So even if it's just 6 months at a time, that's more than they would have without asking for it.
Yeah. Would you say is also art of communication? Also,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about communication? What are the major parts that we need to focus on learn because it's a skill. Uh,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I personally, so this is my belief. I personally believe that learning not to state points of view, right? Like learning to actually just dance in a conversation and be present and think about what the other person is saying before you respond, to acknowledge. I think acknowledgement is one of the biggest keys for communication, especially if you're in a negotiation. Because if you're acknowledging a person, especially a person who's in control, then you're not enticing them to be angry.
yeah.
Oh, I do see your point of view. I've never thought of it that way. But sometimes I think about it like this. I mean, it's work to be in conversations where somebody else has control of your life.
Okay, so the most important is acknowledgement and maybe listening.
Yeah. Well, and thinking about, okay, this is what the person said. This is like, let's say the culture in Iran and Afghanistan, instead of having that be the filter you're running it through, like this is how all men are, right? Well, maybe the man sitting across from you, maybe that's not how he is, but he's also been colored with this historic viewpoint. Maybe there are things that he doesn't like about the situation. Maybe he prefer not to be in control of his daughter or like have to go find a husband, right? But we don't know that, what their intimate thoughts are. If we filter through, "Oh, all men are like this or all people are like this." So that's why being present and actually asking questions and finding out not what the culture believes of men, but what this independent person believes that I'm talking to, right? Because we do that. We do that in the United States. All Democrats believe this. All Republicans believe this. All people from California are like this. All New Yorkers are like this. Like we do that to humans, right? All the time. We do that. Oh, somebody from this culture is that way, or this culture is that way. We do that as human beings. I think we do it psychologically to help compartmentalize to make sense of the world. But when we do that, then we're processing through those filters and we're no longer just present with somebody.
True, yes. But I totally agree with you at generalizing of all people like that and just listen everyone their own story, their own ideas. It helps with the active listening and really put ourselves out of the way and then focus the other person and listen, not judging, just to learn who that person is
Yeah,
without.
maybe you can have the thought in your head as you go into a conversation. I truly don't know anything about this person.
Mm.
What can I learn?
Yeah.
Right? That's why I think the process and my tool is so important. What I can stay in the process and commit to learning. What can I learn about this person? What don't I already? I don't know anything. I need to learn everything.
So I'm curious about your client. You said with a nonprofit organization, who are the maybe um, um, typical client, and if you have any success stories that you can support them in.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of my clients in the business world end up being C-suite executives who want to have better communication or have better tools themselves with their people.
Mhm.
So then the one I told about the gentleman who would talk to himself incorrectly, right? And then he would go and out and talk to his people like through that filter. So when he stopped doing that, his teams grew a lot. And then I had another client who was having a difficult time with somebody across the hierarchy. Like they ran this department and this person ran this department. There was never a communication where the past wasn't being brought up by this person. So this person had to work extremely hard to get not only to keep herself present, but to get the other person to be present. Right? So that came with a pound of acknowledgement. Yeah, I understand that happened in the past, totally agree with you. Like, even if you don't agree, right? Like, it's the past, so it doesn't matter. You can say, yeah, I remember that too. Maybe you don't have to talk. She didn't need to say, well, that's not how I thought about it, or it's not how it, because then you're arguing about the past. So when she's stopped and just acknowledged his past experience, then they started working very easily together.
Yes.
Even though maybe their viewpoint about the past wasn't the same, but just by the tool of acknowledgement,
Mhm.
right? And then I love the story about this little girl that I was doing. She was about 14 years old. So I was speaking at a nonprofit called New Horizons DC. I had 100 people, kids and their teachers. And this girl raised her hand and she said, so if somebody's verbally abusing me,
Mhm.
what you're telling me is what they're saying is not true. And I said, yeah, exactly. It's their assumption about you. If you don't believe what they're saying is true, then you don't have to take it on their opinion of you. When she said, well, that means that nobody could ever bully me. And I said, exactly, right. Nobody could ever verbally bully you. Obviously, somebody could physically touch you, but not verbally abuse you because you can just not take on their point of view, not get upset that they think that. Why do you care what they think? And then she was like, this is so amazing because now I can just ignore them and then they have no power over me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just when you said I remind a story from Buddhism, the monk that the person bully him, and he was just really relaxed and not bother him, and then he was very angry, and then say how he can stay so angry, so calm, and he said, "I don't accept your present."
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I don't accept your present. That's awesome. Yeah. I don't accept your POV. I don't accept your opinion of me.
Yeah, just reject in my, yeah. We don't need to accept what they say. Yeah, that's exactly that. It also demands so much. We activate the power within,
Yes.
strong within, and be aware who we are, or values and those strengths that nobody can harm us. You just be strong. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can just say, I hear you. I don't agree with you. I don't accept that. It's a possibility, but it's not my truth.
Yeah,
It's
that's,
possible, but not my truth.
yeah. Exactly. That's I think I love it because it's something we have to repeat it with ourselves, and so we can, when we are in the situation, we can say it. Sometimes.
Yes. Yes. No, being present in a conversation, I don't think we give it enough respect. But it gets very powerful to be in a conversation with another human being for them to give you your time. It's also very powerful to not let other people's opinion in, but you have to be so present to not do that or to be actively listening, right? Like, and filter through what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep because there's a lot of stuff, a lot of words coming at us in the world.
Yeah, thank you so much for this is excellent tools. I think it's the beginning. It's so much I've learned about communication and about you. If so, we want to connect with you. Where can we contact you as a?
Oh, so I'm on LinkedIn under DeeDee Fisher, and then you can find me. You can actually type in deedefisher.com, and you'll go to my Discover a Response website on the second page. And when you get to DeeDee Fisher, it talks about me, but then you can go to the whole business from there. So it's a very easy way to find me. And then you only have to remember my name, not the business.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we look so much forward to work with you and the um, Women's Leadership Advisory Board.
Yeah, I'm very honored that you asked me to be an advisor. I can't wait to do the work. It's very amazing.
Yeah,
I'm very happy.
thank you so much.
Thank you.